Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on The Flash Season 4. So just one quick thing to mention before we jump into the rest of the video. I'm almost at 6,000 followers on Twitter. I'm about under 100 away. So if you have a Twitter account, be sure to go follow me over there. Be greatly appreciated. I will leave it linked in the description below as per usual. So yeah, go click that and follow me on Twitter. So as most of us should all know by now, Iris West will be suiting up as a speedster this season. Back when we first heard this news, the response wasn't the greatest amongst the fan base of the show, apart from West Helen fans. And even then, some of that fan base weren't like red hot about the idea of Iris suiting up, as it was thought it could affect her character, which already has issues that need to be resolved going into next season. But since then, we have had various other pieces of information and news come out about this particular episode that Iris will be suiting up in. And yes, it is only one episode, and funnily enough, it isn't filler, as you would think with this premise. It is somewhat relevant to the overall plot of the season. Maybe not necessarily Iris becoming a speedster is relevant, but the reasons behind it are. So in the rest of this video, we will be going over mainly the promo images that were released for this episode over the past few days, as well as some other small pieces of information that are important going into this episode. But of course, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on what's going on here. What are you looking forward to most in this episode? What do you think of the different things that go over? Just let me know in the comments section down below. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. The first thing that I do want to go over is actually the synopsis or description for this episode, as it does reveal more stuff that isn't actually hinted at in the promo images, as some people are actually confused as to which character is which in this episode, which you'll understand when I get into the breakdown and stuff. So let's go over that now. Team Flash confronts a new bus meta, Matthew, aka Melting Pot, who has the ability to swap people's DNA. During a battle with Team Flash, Matthew accidentally takes Barry's speed away and gives it to Iris. Now with a new threat unleashed on Central City, Barry must act as the team leader while Iris takes on the mantle of superhero speedster in order to defeat their new foe. So Melting Pot will be the meta that swaps Barry and Iris's DNA, which in turn gives Iris her speed. I know many people are not really happy with that playing out, as really that isn't how it should work if you were going to break it down scientifically. Personally, that doesn't really bother me too much, as there have been even more ridiculous things to happen on the show than this. So for me, this isn't World War III or anything like that. But the person we saw Iris taking on in set photos, like from a while ago, as well as these promo images from this episode, is actually another character called Jaco Birch, who is described as an obsessive music fanatic who worships at the altar of classic heavy metal. He is a roadie for all the contemporary metal bands you've never heard of, and there's one other thing, he loves to set things on fire. So it is unclear whether he is a meta or not, but seeing that Melting Pot is a bus meta, I can't see this Jaco Birch being a bus meta as well. But what I'm guessing happens is that Melting Pot swaps someone else's abilities with Jaco, giving him these abilities, or possibly he is a similar character to that of Heatwave maybe, has pyro weapons or something like that. We'll have to wait and see in regards to that. It doesn't look like that is the case though, going by the set photos. You can't see him with any weapons and stuff. So you would have to put your money on him getting these fire powers from Melting Pot. Who else has fire powers in Central City that Jaco would, get them from? I don't know, maybe it's from another city. They're going to have to explain it. Iris's suit has been a big talking point of the episode. Groups, including myself, wondering what was going on with it. How did Cisco, presumably, come up with it so quickly as soon as Iris becomes a speedster? But as we can see here, when Iris first heads out as this newly formed speedster, she will be wearing a sweater. Yeah, that's random for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if Team Flash is more focused on figuring out how to give Barry back his powers and taking them off Iris, rather than maybe training Iris for a bit so she could take down a threat if needed. But we can see her in a burning building, so you would have to think this has to do with Jaco Birch, or maybe it's another character who Melting Pot takes the powers from them and gives them to Jaco, and there's like two villains that Iris is taking on. That's a bit confusing, so maybe this is just Jaco Birch. Let's not make it all convoluted and stuff like that. I do think that we will only see two conflicts between them though, like this first one with Iris in a sweater, and then the last one. But yeah, just the sweater with the mask does look a bit humorous. So thank God they're getting the suit. But onto those final showdown pictures, if you want to call them that, between Speedster Iris and Jaco Birch. If Jaco Birch does look familiar to some of you, that is because the actor Max Adler was a cast member on Glee, so another Glee person coming to the Arrowverse, if you ever watch that. But it does look like this will be your standard villain of the week showdown. But what is really the most interesting thing about these photos is, of course, Iris's speedster suit. The reason it is interesting is not really to do with Iris too much, but the future of that particular suit, or at least that design. Going by the photos, I think it is safe to assume that this suit will only be worn in this final fight. As I said before, like the sweater will be Iris's first outing, and then we'll see this suit in the final fight. We even actually see photos of the suit being given to Iris by Cisco and just Team Flash in general. So one of the theories that is going around regarding this episode and these photos and the presumed like short life of the suit in this episode is that the suit that Iris wears will be put into like an archive of sorts and handed down generations and could possibly end up in the hands of someone like Dawn Allen or even Jenny Ognatz, who are the daughter and granddaughter of Iris and Barry. The suit itself does resemble that of Jenny Ognatz's suit from the comics, so you would consider it a pretty good option to believe or support this theory. However, in the episode, they could straight up call Iris like XS or something. Maybe the suit is extra small. That could be the little joke they go for there, because obviously the abbreviation of extra small is XS on clothing. And that could just be a reference to Jenny from the comics and the fact that the suit sort of looks like hers. For those that don't know, XS is actually Jenny Ognatz's codename from the comics. She is a part of the Legion of Superheroes. There are a few shots of Barry in these promo images, and Barry will essentially just be doing what Iris has been doing for the most of this season. So this episode is sort of like a Freaky Friday episode, I guess, but without the swapping of minds into different bodies, just abilities through DNA. But it should be interesting, nonetheless, to see Barry in this role. And yes, going by the title of Run, Iris, Run, we should expect Barry to say this to Iris at some point, most likely towards the end of the episode leading up to that final fight. Now, there are actually two images in this bunch of promo images which are very interesting and no one seems to be talking about. And that is when we see Harry with this like thinking cap looking device. So last episode, we saw like the cerebral inhibitor introduced that had been talked about like towards the end of season 3 by Savitar Barry. Obviously that failed, but this looks like it could be the cerebral inhibitor 3.0. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence that it looks like the thinking cap, or maybe something happens throughout this episode where Team Flash learn about the thinking cap or something like that. I'm very interested to see like how this design comes about. I know the one that Cecile had already sort of looked like the thinking cap, but this is legit the thinking cap with a couple more things attached to it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it because the cerebral inhibitor failed. Savitar Barry last season never said it worked. He just said that they used it against DeVoe. He never said that it like defeated DeVoe or anything like that. So I wonder if Harry's ever going to be able to get it to work, and maybe Tracy Brand might be brought back into the season to finally get it to work. I don't know, we've still got a decent amount of episodes to go, so there's still a lot of time to figure all that out, but I don't know if we're ever going to see the cerebral inhibitor work, but Harry may as well give it his best shot. But speaking of Melting Pot, like really he's hardly mentioned like going into this episode. I think he's just there as like a reason as to why Iris gets speedster powers, but if DeVoe gets his hand on Melting Pot, that's really overpowered. That is extremely overpowered. Like, I think if he gets Ralph's powers, that's overpowered. Like, I think him having Brainstorm's abilities were pretty overpowered. But I think Melting Pot is pretty much up there with overpowered abilities. So, Team Flash is probably more worried about him, DeVoe getting his hands on Melting Pot than anything else. Because I can't imagine anything worse than maybe Barry's powers going to DeVoe for a bit. But then again, I guess DeVoe's powers would go to Barry. So, who would be in the worst situation there? Probably DeVoe, because then Barry would be really overpowered like 7 abilities, but I don't know. Melting Pot going to DeVoe is another thing that, you know, Team Flash have to worry about in this episode. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'll be awesome if you could drop a like in the video to show your support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on what I went over in this video. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. As I said, follow me on Twitter if you do not follow me already, or if you have a Twitter account and stuff like that. But yeah, until the next video, guys, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.